My son Shlomo asked me a question last night. I was speaking to him about the parsha, last week's parsha. And the question was, we find that Rochel had no children. And she says to Yaakov, if you don't give me a child, I'm going to die. So the Torah tells us, Vayicha Raf Yaakov v'Rochel. Yaakov became angry at Rochel. And he said, Hasach Salokim Anochi, am I in the place of God? And Rashi explains, I have children. I have children from Leah and from the concubines. God denied you the child. That's what he said to her. So the question he asked me was, by Rivka we find when she was not Korah, when she was barren, she prayed for herself. We don't find Rachel prayed for herself. She came to Yaakov and said, give me a child. You prayed for Leah, why don't you pray for me? That was the question. Why don't she pray for herself? So you could say maybe she did pray, but there's no indication she did pray. We find by Shimon, Leah did pray, right? Ra Hashem is Oni, Hashem saw my affliction, that's Ruvain. Shema Hashem is Koli. Hashem heard my voice. So Shimon clearly, Leah prayed. She was inspired for herself. So you'd say, probably, Rachel definitely was inspired for herself, there's no question, but that over type of tefillah, like we find by Rivka, when Rivka realized she was not Korah, it says she was in one corner, Yitzchak was in the other corner, and they prayed. They were spalling. We don't find that intensity, that level of tefillah in regard to Rachel. She definitely prayed. Because we see if Leah was mispalo, Shema Hashem is Koli, when Shimon was born, she probably prayed. Or maybe not. Not to the same level. The question is, why not? So I saw Balaturim on Shabbos, never saw it before. We find that when Yaakov comes, he finds 3 shepherds around the well, and there's a boulder on top of the well. It's interesting, he comes to a well. So the Balaturim cites a medrash that Rivka had said to Yaakov, when you go to Choron, to the communion of my brother, just as I was located at a well, because that's where Eliezer found her, where he was mispalel, the maiden that comes out to draw water, and so on and so forth. So identically, you will find your zivug by a well, and that woman that you're going to see is going to resemble me, as I am beautiful, and my facial features are something very specific. That young maiden will resemble me. That's what she told Yaakov. He comes to the well because he understands that's where he's going to find his zivug. That's because that's what his mother had said to him. And sure, evidently, Rachel had that resemblance to his mother. That's what happened. So now we understand the moment he saw her, he became excited because now this is his zivug. This is the woman from who he's going to build Klal Yisrael. She's going to be the future matriarch. And that's why Rachel was that Keres Habayis. As it says in Chazal, she was equal Shabayis. She was the primary matriarch. As Rashi cited a number of psukim, because even Boaz, who was from Yehuda, acknowledged it's Rachel, Beis Rachel, then it's Beis Leah. Rachel takes precedence over Leah. Rachel is the primary matriarch. But he knew she was that because what his mother told him. If that's the case, Rachel understanding that, she understands now this is his responsibility. If she is the matriarch, if that's the case, he'll pray for her. That's his responsibility. Leah was the secondary wife. Leah wasn't the main matriarch. If that's the case, Leah has to pray for herself. She has to accomplish on her own because Yaakov is not going to push it. Is not going to push it as much as he's going to push Rachel, because Rachel is the matriarch. As a result of that, we don't find that level of tefillah in regard to Rachel as we find it by Leah. And that's what she said. It's your responsibility. Why don't you pray for me? If I am the matriarch, you should have prayed for me from day one, from the first moment. You knew I was the matriarch. So why don't we spalio? And if not, I will die. And that he became angry with her. And it says there was a consequence. Because the Medrash says, because he became angry, Hashem says, Kach meishivin esabukos. Is this the way you respond to a woman who has a broken spirit? She has no children. That's not the way you speak to her. And because that you spoke to her that way, chayecho, I swear on your life, that your children will bow to her son. Ultimately, because of that, your children, and that's the story when Yosef was the viceroy, where they weren't aware that Yosef was their brother. He bowed to them when they first came to Egypt. That was the interpretation of the dream, the dreams that Yosef had, that the sheaves are bowing. But that was only a consequence of Yaakov being insensitive to Leah, to Rachel, that he said, "Atachsel kimanochi," and he got angry at her. He shouldn't have got angry at her. He should have realized her sensitivity, her predicament. Actually, Yosef was the one, as we had the end of the Parsha, which the Parsha begins this week, that when Yosef was born, Yaakov was ready to leave because Yosef is Sitno Shel Esav. He is the antagonist of Esav, because Yaakov is Eish and Yosef's Lohova, and he was the primary. He was the Ben Zekunim, as it says. He loved Yosef more than his other children because he's Ben Zekunim alone. Either he's born to his old age, or he resembled him, or he's the wisest of all his children, and he shared all the Torah that he learned in Shem Ve'ever. He only shared with Yosef. He did not share with the other children. So what's so terrible? Because he became angry. Her children are about to your son. So what's so terrible? Yosef is the equivalent of all the brothers combined. Yosef is what? Is a clone of Yaakov. Plus he has an additional characteristic. He's lahava. He's like the flame. He reaches out. He consumes Esau. Why is it so terrible if bonech mishtachon lebno? Question I once asked. And I quote in the Gemara. The Gemara says in Subis, "Kol ador b'chutz lo ke'elo elokal." A person who lives outside of Eretz Yisrael, it's like he has no God. What do you mean he has no God? So he explained that every location in the world was distributed among all the 70 root nations. And every root nation has an archangel. And all the sustenance it receives goes through that archangel. So the Marsha over there cites the Ramban. Eretz Yisrael is Eretz HaKadosha. Eretz Yisrael has no archangel. The relationship is directly HaKadosh Baruch Hu straight to us. As a result of that, we receive the sustenance directly from Hashem. It doesn't go through an intermediary. In Chutz La'aretz, when we're outside of Eretz Yisrael, we're under the dominion of that archangel. So there, it comes through an intermediary. It doesn't come directly from Hashem. Not to receive something directly from Hashem, it's not the same at the same level. Give you an example. One has an obligation of beholdenness if anybody does anything for you. If you receive it directly from HaKadosh Baruch Hu, the only one you're beholding to is Hashem. Whenever it goes through an intermediary, automatically it actually blurs the reality. You don't have it's not the same level of understanding and reality of receiving direct. That your children have to bow, have to subordinate themselves to a human being, and he will be the provider. That's considered something, not the ultimate level. The ultimate level is a famine Hashem gives it to you directly. Abraham, there was a famine, he went to Egypt. Yitzchak, there was a famine, he planted 100. He planted, it was 100-fold yield. Hashem gave him performed a miracle directly for him. Here, because you were insensitive, therefore your son will be the provider. They will submit to him. Submission is there's an intermediary. Doesn't come directly from Hashem. That itself is what is a punishment for your level of insensitivity that you had to Rachel. That's how I once explained it. Yaakov said after he awoke on Har Moriah, and Hashem gave him a guarantee that he'll watch over him and bring him back. So Yaakov says, "Vida Yaakov neder lemor." Starts at Chof. Yaakov made a vow. If Hashem will be with me, and I go on the path that I'm traveling, that I'm going, he gives me bread to eat, a garment to wear. This is the Rashi, this is the Pasuk. And I will be returned in peace to the home of my father. Then Hashem will be Elokim. So take a look at Rashi. Chaf Aleph, V'shavti, K'mo she'omar li, v'ashivusicha elo adama. As he said to me, I will bring you back to this location. B'shalom. What does shalom mean? Shalom minachet. Complete, shalom minachet, complete, not to be in any way tarnished with sin, not to be diminished as a result of chet. Shalom, shalom, elmad midarki lovam. It says two things. I should be whole from sin. I should not be diminished due to sin. And shalom elmad midarki lovan. I should not learn from his ways. Seems to be redundant. If he comes back without sin, whole, he didn't sin. What do you mean? I shouldn't learn from his ways, right? But we'll see from the beginning of Vayishlach, it's two different things. Let's take a look. Vayishlach Yaakov Malochim lefonav. Beginning of Parshas Vayishlach. Yaakov sent Malochim before him. El Esav Ochiv. Archer says to Edom. He sent angels or agents to Esav, his brother, to the land of Seir, which is Edom, the field of Edom. That was the Edomite territory. Vayishlach Yaakov Malochim. Malochim Mamish, literally angels. They were not mortals. His agents were angels. Arza Seir, Leret Seir, Kotevo, as Rashi always says, Sheshricha Lamed B'tchiloso, Hitil Hakos V'hei B'sofa. Instead of saying Le'eretz Seir, it's Arza, the Hey is the equivalent of the Lamed. And what does he say to Esav? And he commanded them to say, Ko Somer Ladoni Esav. This is what you should say to my master Esav. Ko Amar Abducha Yaakov. This is what your servant Yaakov said in Lavan Garti. I sojourned with Lavan, Vechara'ato. Esav hasn't seen Yaakov for 34 years. And he says, I've been sojourning with Lavan, and I've been delayed until now. That's what he's telling him. Yeah, delayed. 34 years he hasn't seen him. When he fled, he vowed to kill him because of what he did. By the way, I've just been detoured. It's a serious detour, 34 years. But that's what he says to him. Now, this is the famous Rashi, which is Chazal. Garti. Lo nasesi sar v'choshev elagir. I never became a minister. I never had any level of distinction. I'm like a ger, stranger. Enoch kedai lisno osi al birchas avicho shebechani havigvir lachicho. It doesn't pay to, in any way, to hate me. That the blessing of our father actually came to fruition. Because the blessing was you're going to be Gvir lachicho. You'll be a gvir. You'll have a status of distinction. Hariluskaima be. That's the first interpretation. Dover achad is that. Garti begmarti taryag. The numerical value of garti is taryag. Kloma im lovan harosha garti. Despite the fact that I sojourned with lovan harosha, the targ mitzvah shamarti, and I observed the 613 precepts. And I did not learn from his evil ways. So the two things here. In love and garti, and despite that, I kept the 613 mitzvahs. In addition, lomati masav roim, I did not learn from his evil ways. This is literally b'shalom. When he made the netter, if Hashem brings him back with shalom, shalom means shalom minachet, and shalom complete. I did not learn from his ways. So here, what he's saying is actually what Hashem had promised him happened. That not only is he not compromised sin-wise, what does that mean? That's exactly what Hashem said, and that was the prerequisite to fulfill the netter. We had mentioned that when Yaakov made the netter, he said, "Im yeh Elokimi modi, im Elokim." He could have said, "Im yeh Hashemi modi, Yud Vav Kei." Why did he say Elokim? So over there, the Or Chaim HaKadosh explained that Yaakov said that I want the evaluation to be when I go to Choron, only with Midas Adin. I don't want the evaluation to be with Midas Arachmin. We mentioned it last week. Why? So we asked why. I mean, that's the point the Or Chaim HaKadosh makes. He wanted to be under the lens of Midas Adin, not Midas Arachmin. And only based on that perfect evaluation, that precise evaluation, Yaakov knows he will survive. Tired mitzvahs shamarti. I kept 613 mitzvahs. But now there's another question. Very often people keep mitzvahs, and I suppress my inclinations. But very often a person says, if there wouldn't be this barrier or the restriction, I wish I could do what the other people do. You value those things. You value them. You mean because if you would see it as something which would be dread and abomination, you wouldn't want to go near it. You see people swimming in sewage. I don't care how hot that day is. You don't envy them when they're swimming in sewage. You understand what sewage is. Yaakov wanted to have a level of clarity that whatever Lavan represented, he detested it, he despised it, it was revolting to him. Nothing to do with it. So that's what he says. I did not learn from his ways. There wasn't even a chance I could even be influenced by him. Whatever he was, is overtly as overwhelming that whatever that was. Meaning he was able to meet the standard of Midas Adin. That's what he's saying. And that's what he said, B'sholem. Hashem will bring back peace. Sholem with what? That I should not be compromised in my mitzvahs, and I should not learn from Lavan's ways. And that's exactly what he's saying now. I've been there for 20 years. I did not learn. Not only did I not fail sin-wise, I did not learn from his ways. There wasn't a chance I could learn because I saw him in the most detestable state. I wanted nothing to do with the man. So the question is, why is he sharing this information with Esav? In love and garti, time to shamarti, lamarti masiv eroim. Now, we asked the question that when Esav sent Eliphaz to take the wealth from Yaakov, and Yaakov gave him this lumdus, you learned from your grandfather, take my wealth, and you fulfilled the wishes of your father. You killed me, because I'm like a dead man. Now, we'd explained that Yaakov understood when he gave up that wealth, he's going to be there for a long time. Because Lavan, the only way you could deal with a man like Lavan, you have to have that enormous wealth to negotiate the hands of the daughters. Now he's stuck there forever. He has no idea how long he's going to be there. Nobody understood Lavan the way Esav understood Lavan. The birthright was a conditional birthright. The only time the birthright is in place, that's only if it's Hakol Kol Yaakov. If the Kol Yaakov is compromised, what did Hashem say? What did Yitzchak say to Esau when he gave him the blessings? Right? That if your brother should fail and not be a Yaakov, you'll be able to throw off his yoke. Right? That's what Yitzchak said to Esau. I mean, if he should no longer be a Yaakov, the birthright, the blessing is not in place. It reverts back to you. Now, the only way Yaakov could survive in Esau's mind, Lavan, only if he's in and out. If he has to stay there for an extended period of time, spiritually, it's impossible to survive. You can't survive in that environment without being compromised. Impossible. If that's the case, when Eliphaz took the wealth from Yaakov, he understood, Oni Choshev Kemes, now he has no value any longer. Why? Because now being there long haul, he's ultimately being influenced. Once he's influenced, he's no longer Yaakov. Once he's no longer Yaakov, automatically the birthright returns to him. Therefore, there's no reason to pursue Yaakov to kill him in the home of Lavan. He knew where he was. But he believed he's no longer Yaakov. Now Yaakov sends back a message. But Esau didn't understand that he had a guarantee of Shmarticha. Esau didn't understand. Humanly, there's no way to survive. Literally, you need that divine protection at a level which is one of a kind. Hashem gave him that. Ushmarticha. And what did Yaakov say? But even the Shmarticha, Yaakov was concerned. It's not enough. It's only in Lekimni Modi. He took on the Midas Adin. Only with that standard, with that lens, could you survive. He's coming back and he's saying to Esau, in love of Garti, if you think I forfeit the birthright, I'm the same Yaakov. The birthright is intact. Not only did I not compromise myself versus doing the mitzvahs, despite being there, I detested his existence. Therefore, I haven't been affected as much as an iota. Therefore, the birthright is intact. When Esau heard this, well, what did they come back with the information? He's coming against you with 400 men. Till then, Esau had no reason to kill Yaakov. Yaakov is no longer Yaakov. But now when he hears in love and God targets to Shamarti, Yaakov is still in full possession of the birthright. Now it's an all-out war between Yaakov and Esau. Because Esau understood that this point was crucial. This was the hinging point. Whether he has the birthright or doesn't have the birthright. You understand?
Yes, but
Yeah.
why would he? What would the reversion of the birthright to him mean to him? Like, how
To Esau?
to Esau? What I mean?
That means now he's worthy of the material blessing.
He already has a material blessing.
No. The material blessing is not at that level of the birth of which Yaakov received. That was a secondary.
Right.
And when it reverts back to him, he gets what Yaakov was meant to have. He's the dominant figure in the world. If Yaakov has the blessing, Yaakov is the dominant figure. Esau is a secondary figure.
Well, they're apart for 36 years. Esau's going about his business. He's got the command of 400 men and all kinds of wealth.
You understand?
I don't.
You believe in number one of Forbes 500. And nobody's even near you. You're okay. All of a sudden you realize you're number 16. And you got 16 notches to go up as much as you believed. Esau believed he was there because there's no way Yaakov survived or will survive. That's number one. But the other thing is, we're not talking about the now. The birthright we're speaking now is the birthright which ultimately will establish in the future that the nation that will come from him will be that ultimate nation. That nation will have the ability to counter all 70 nations of the world. Esau is not going to be that dominant figure. I'll give you an example. Rome ruled the world supreme. They destroyed the second Beis Hamikdash. That was the ultimate reversion back to Esau of that blessing. And that's what Beis Hamikdash was destroyed. When it was destroyed, Rome ruled the world supreme. That was Rome. That's the position Esav wanted. This is before a nation. Yaakov was a one man with a small family. But if Yaakov failed, there's no future. All of a sudden, he hears Yaakov didn't fail. That means it's secure in place. The foundation is secure. He will destroy that foundation. Now it's a fight to the death between Esav and Yaakov.
He's not concerned that.
But the question, which is going to make it more difficult, is part of the answer. It says in the Medrash that Yaakov made a very serious mistake by alerting Esav that he's coming back. He sent messengers. He's coming back. I haven't seen you all these years. I've been delayed. It was a mistake. But why did he even? Well, what was it? Why did he send these messengers?
Walk up to dog, sleeping dog.
So Yaakov was concerned that Esav was aware that he was coming back. Therefore, he has to subordinate himself to him, because he always refers to himself, Abdecha Yaakov. I am your servant, continuously, to humble himself to Esav. He wanted to downplay it, because Esav is aware, and ultimately this is a confrontation which cannot be avoided. But it says, Mashal Ma'adovadova, what is it analogous to? There was a person who travels, and he was concerned there was a known notorious bandit on this route. And he comes to a location, and he sees somebody sleeping there. It turned out this person sleeping is that notorious bandit. And he wakes up the person, says, by the way, I want to tell you something. You have to be very careful, because there's a notorious bandit patrolling these roads. You got to be concerned. If he were to so what happens? The bandit rises. He wants to kill the person who wakes him up. Esav was totally oblivious to Esav. Yaakov was from the farthest thing in Esav's mind. He thought he perished there, whatever it is. Even if he comes back, he's come back as a nobody. So that he alerted him that he's coming back. As he's coming back, he woke the sleeping dog. Those are the words, it quotes a posuk. He woke the sleeping dog. Now, this ferocious dog wants to devour him. So he created his own problem over here, Yaakov. He created his own problem. So now we have a question. He made a mistake. So he woke the dog. He made a mistake. But what was even the consideration? Because he thought he was coming towards him. So if he thought he's coming towards him, the only way he could deflect Esav is by saying he hasn't failed spiritually. That's the only way he could deflect him. But why was he worried? So if that's the case, why did he have to send the gift? Why did he have to do whatever he did? The answer is because he was concerned, as the Gemara says. He said, maybe I was compromised. With everything said and done, there's more, although I believe it, but you never know. Because if I was compromised as much as an iota, I no longer have the protection. And I could be killed. And my family could be killed. Therefore, he prayed, he sent the gift, and he prepared for war. He did whatever was within his ability. So that was only because he believed that Esav was coming towards him, which was the mistake. He was the farthest thing from Esav's mind. So he had no choice but to tell him love and garti, tarbitz shamarti. Because believing that he's coming towards him automatically indicated that that he has to tell him who he is. Because if he doesn't know who he is, right, then he's going to be compromised. You're following what I'm saying?